Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, and welcome to Across the Pitch Extra Edition. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I'm here with my co host Tony Robinson. And today we have an Across the Pitch Extra that's a little bit out of the ordinary in a sense that there's a bit of a rumbling in the family, if you will. For those of you who have been following Stanley closely, you of course know that Dion Charles is coming off of a big season last year where he had 20 goals across all competitions. That, of course, has led to some interest from other clubs, possibly bigger clubs. And what we've run into now is a situation where he was left out of the lineup for Saturday's match against Wigan. John Coleman, in his post-game press conference, alluded to that, maybe Dion isn't quite into playing with Stanley anymore, and this is something that's just really unheard of and new territory for Stanley to have something like this going on. And Tony, why don't you give us your kind of summarization of the events that have happened over the past few days?
I feel, yeah, it's quite unique because we're just not used to seeing some discontent within the Stanley family of players, and to see this is I think has caught a lot of people off guard and actually taken the pressure off the person in Block C, because now we're talking about Dion Charles. But you're right. It seems like from what John Coleman was saying about Dion Charles not having the commitment to his contract to the club and the respect towards his players. When you have that, you can't obviously you can't play a player for that. It looks like, and I think John alluded to this, is that his dip in form seems to coincide with his call up to the international duty with Northern Ireland, and you've got like you mentioned the interest from other clubs, and I guess an offer came in the deadline day, and it was from a Scottish club that wasn't really worth considering. You've got that, and then the international call up, as I said, and also you've got an agent talking to him too. So you've got a lot of things in play. And I think it all accumulated into an eruption on Saturday, and John Coleman had no choice but to sit him down.
Well, Tony, I think that you raised an important factor there when you mentioned an agent, and any time you get an agent into the mix, that agent is going to be looking out for the bottom line and in his pocket, and I think that agents don't necessarily always give players the advice that are in the player's ultimate best interest, because I mean Dion Charles is a guy where he's coming off of a great season last year. Like you mentioned, he's starting to get the international call-ups. He's starting to play with the Northern Ireland international team, and he should be in the upswing part of his career where things are exciting and going well, and I don't think that to kind of maybe get this label of a malcontent, or like you said, someone who doesn't want to honor his contract, especially being just 2 years removed from non-league. And like Andy Holt has said, we bring players up from non-league, we give them the chance to kind of showcase their talent and get these bigger opportunities. But I mean, at this point, I mean, Dion, he's still under contract with Stanley for, I believe, this and next season.
Yeah, I know for this season. I don't know if there's a add-on clause where he is where the club can sign him for next year. I know they've got an offer, contract offer to his agent, and we don't know. Obviously, there's nothing been finalized in that area. But I think one of the key things that Andy Hulk said in his tweets, and you gotta love Andy for saying it like it is, and he's not just he wasn't talking about Dion Charles in specifically, but the fact that the club does give an opportunity for non-league players for a place to show themselves, and they'll sell the player, but they want to get back the cost of what they've got in the player for training and development, and that's understandable. And they also are. Andy said he wants to pay back to the non-league club and help them out and for the work they did to develop the player, so that they get some money. But then the club has to make money to cover their costs if they come to sell. And like you said, you can't sell it. You can't just keep selling them all at once because then you're going to have no team to play, and you can't just take an offer that really doesn't cover your costs. So I think Andy covered it well. That really, you have a contract, and you're there to honor it, and you've got to respect it and play out your contract. And there's no better way to show how good you are as a player than playing in League One for the first team, sitting on the bench or sitting on the bench today, I guess, for the under 23s. That's not going to get you a contract to a higher club.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's exactly what Andy said in one of his tweets, and I think this was one of the best points that he made, is he said, the reality is clubs don't sell players. Players sell players by their action on the pitch. The harder they work, the better they do, the more clubs are going to want them, higher sale price, higher wage. So and that goes back to what I was getting at, where, at this point, if it's coming from the agent, not to play, that's not good advice, because Dion can only improve his position for the future and in terms of getting higher wages by performing on the pitch. And if he's not playing, or like I said, if he gets labeled as somebody that didn't want to finish out his contract, that's not going to help other teams want him. And that's kind of what Andy has said here also. He said, you've got the agents filling players' heads full of, he used a bad word there. And I mean, that's really what this seems like to me, is where I think, an agent has just gotten into a guy's head and not given him the best advice.
Well, I'm going to add onto that. I think you're right that he's not getting the best advice from the agent, or the agent would have been saying to pull your socks up and get out on the pitch and play. But his mind's not in it when he's training, and it's obviously his form's dropped. But I look back to, was there signs of something amiss? And we know that his form has dropped off this season. But I think it goes back to when he was first called up with Northern Ireland. And when you're at playing with all those top level players that are playing for the senior squad, players talk, and they're gonna say, well, you could do better than you are, or you could make more money, kind of thing. I'm not saying that happened, but there's a potential possibility that could have happened. But one of the key things for me was what Ian Barraclough said after his first call up. I think that was last March, when he said that. I'll give him credit. He did acknowledge that he scored 17 goals, which is no mean feat. But he added this comment where he said, "For an unfashionable club," and that's not really playing cricket. That's not the way you should be wording that. And then at the same time, he also added on that Dion Charles has learned more with us in his international call-up training session than he has at Accrington Stanley. And those comments, to me, they're a slap in the face to Andy Alt, John Coleman, Jimmy Bell, and the whole team and the players. And also, it must have filled Dion Charles' head with misinformation, because I think you can look back and things went downhill from that point on. And certainly, it's certainly his call up, his play has not and especially this season, has not warranted an international call-up. And so I'm looking at the manager at Northern Ireland as part of this, maybe one of the major parts of this problem.
Yeah, I mean that quote that you bring there, it's a very it's one thing to say unfashionable club. Okay, Stanley has the history of being the little engine that could or whatever.
Yeah.
I could see unfashionable club, but to make a statement like that in a short period of time he's learned more than his time at Accrington. I mean that's absolute hogwash because the results speak for themselves. I mean, John Coleman, Jimmy Bill, those guys do not get 4 promotions and the results that they have without knowing how to teach football. And that's just absolutely crazy. But so I want to kind of pivot a little bit because on Twitter, Rob Russell he made a comment where he said, this is the kind of thing that has potential to unravel a promising season, not just the loss of an important player, but the decimation of the team spirit. Are you concerned that this is something that could go that far, or do you think that the Stanley family, if you will, is strong enough to weather the storm? I mean, I've got to say, with what we saw at Wigan on Saturday, and that was the worst I've seen the club look since I can't remember when.
Yeah, now granted, Wigan were a top club. I think they're the best team that Stanley's played to this point. But Rob makes a valid point, and the longer it festers, the longer the worse it's going to get, and it's like ripping a plaster or a Band-Aid off. If you do it slowly, it's painful, and this is what I think what we're seeing now. Where we're still in the process, and that leads me to really to the next point is can it be fixed? Now I'm going to take one position, and I'll let you counter with the other, and
Okay.
we'll see if we can nail this. I think it can be fixed, and the reason I think that is, first of all, it's got to be the agent's got to tell Dion Charles like he's got to buck up. But first of all, he's got to apologize. He's got to do it to Andy Holt. He's got to do it to the coaching staff, John Coleman, etc. And he's got to do it to the players in the dressing room without the coaching staff. He's got to bear his chest, and he's got to apologize to all those. And more importantly, he's got to make some public statement or comment to apologize to the fans. And the sooner he does that, if he does that, and then works hard in training, he's going to be back playing. And I think it can be fixed, but it's got to be done. It's got to be done quickly. Now, with him being on the under 23s squad, you can look at that 2 ways. I'm going to look at it as a way is that this is the start of the healing process where he's put him in the squad, and maybe then this healing process is underway. So I say it can be fixed, but it's got to be done toot sweet.
Well, Tony, I'm going to agree with parts of what you said. I mean, I certainly think when we saw his name show up there that he was on the bench for the under-23 squad today, that was a promising sign that, okay, they're at least working towards a resolution. I mean, I wouldn't think that would be a punishment type of thing. I think this would be more of a, okay, we're going to kind of start, trying to have you work your way back kind of thing. That being said, I mean, it's going to be tough because with Stanley different than other clubs, we've talked about this so much of, how important the one team, one goal, the team is bigger than the sum of the parts, and, all the cliches, if you will. I mean, that is just such a part of the Stanley culture that when a guy kind of breaks that, it's going to be interesting to see how well that goes over in the dressing room, especially, with some of the veterans and things like that. Is this something where, the guys are going to say, you don't want to be here? Okay, don't be here. I mean, that's certainly a concern.
Yeah, and John Coleman said he's got to be. Whoa, somebody didn't like that comment.
What's
um,
that?
oh, it was sorry. It was I just got a beep on my laptop that threw me right off. John Coleman mentioned the word commitment, and he's got to show that he's committed to the club. And he's got to do that not only in the training ground, but he's got to do that, as I said, with the players, and he's got to be sincere. If he isn't, and the players don't buy into that, then he's just going to end up training with the youth team or with the under 23s and not be part of the senior squad. But he's got responsibilities he's got to do to get paid, and the club, if he does show up and train, but he's not committed to improving himself and playing at the best, then the club will put him off to the side and say, look, you're not going to train with the first team because your heart's not in it. But as I said, it's really now the agent's got to be telling Dion Charles, said, listen, you gotta make this thing right, and you can do it, but you got to do it quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, the bottom line is, like you said, his heart has got to be in it. And, Stanley isn't the type of team where they're going to take a guy and say, well, okay, he's one of our more talented guys, so, we'll let him slide with half the effort. Because, that's when you're going to have something where what Rob's talking about, where it just becomes a poisonous thing throughout the team. And, at the end of the day, it's not about putting the 11 most talented guys on the pitch. It's got to be the 11 guys that have a combination of talent and are also working the hardest.
I think the telling tale will be when John Coleman does his pre-match interview he usually does it on Thursday before the Morecambe match, and I think we'll know then which way this is going to go. Because if he's coming back, then the apologies and will be underway, as I say, as we record this. So if he's not willing to do that, which really his agent's got to tell him, if you're not playing, you're not in the shop window and you're not going to get a big contract. If he wants to play elsewhere and run out his contract, he's entitled to do that. But to get somebody to come in and increase his wages or go to a so-called bigger club, the only way you can do that is to be on the pitch on Saturday afternoons and Tuesday nights, going all out like he did last season.
Absolutely. And I think that, I'm a huge Dion Charles fan, and I think you're a Dion Charles fan also. And
Yep.
we definitely want to see him on the pitch, and we want to see great things throughout his career. And we do want to see him be able to move on and go to the bigger clubs and get that bigger contract. But like you said, and, like Andy said, players need to sell themselves, and we need to see him out on the pitch, putting the onion in the bag as he did so often last season.
And he's got to, if he doesn't apologize to the fans, then the fans will turn on him if he is put on the pitch. I mean, if he apologizes to everybody else but not to the fans, and he starts on a Saturday afternoon at the Wham, the fans could turn on him, and that's not going to help him. So he's got a lot of contrition to go through here, and it's just he's made his bed now. He's got to make the bed and get on with it, because nobody's going to want to pay him more money and come in for a transfer in January if he's not on the pitch playing.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, the other thing is, I mean, he's still a young guy because obviously he qualifies for the under 23s. So, I mean, he's got a lot of future ahead of him, but he's also not one of these guys where he's, 17, 18 years old. I mean, he's at the point in his career where now is where he needs to make his move if he's going to move up to play for those bigger clubs. I mean, it's, the clock is ticking just like with any player's career where, right now at the age that he's at is when he needs to establish himself that, he's a guy that clubs want to pay the big money for.
Well, I think he's around 25, and I think the under 23s are allowed to have two or three senior players because I think.
Oh, is he? I thought he was like 22.
I think he's 25, and Seamus Keneally was on that on the squad, so I think they can play a couple of senior people. But you're right. Even at his age that he's at now, if he signs a 3-4 year contract,
Let's see, 90 October. Okay, he's 25. He actually turns 26 on October. Yeah, so he's going to be 26 in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, so this could be a really big contract for him because if he signs somewhere for 3-year contract, this is his prime years, and he's got from now. If he doesn't want to play for Stanley, but he comes and commits himself to the team, then he may get bought, transfer in January. But then again, as Andy has said, it's got to be for the right amount of money, what they've got invested in him and what they want to give back to, or they have to give back to Southport. If not, then he plays out his contract to the end of next year and on his way. But I'm being optimistic, and I'm saying that it can be fixed, and we'll know by John Coleman's interview and by what the lineup is on Saturday for Morecambe.
Absolutely. I think we're both rooting for the same thing, Tony. Yep. And certainly Morecambe back in the same league as Stanley. That is as close to a rivalry game as we have here. And I'm really excited for, what is a bit of a derby. You want to finish up with a prediction for the Morecambe match?
I think we're going to bounce back and we're going to have a 2-1 win.
I like that, Tony, and I think that we're going to bounce back too. And like I said, I mean, this is a match that it's a little something bigger for the fans. I think that, some of the guys like Keneally and McConville, who have been around since the League 2 days, they know a little bit about this rivalry. And you're going to see Stanley bring their A game, and I'm going to say 3-1.
Wow, well done. Okay. I hope you're right, Phil, because I hate the nail biters. I really do.
Hey, as long as we get 3 points,
yep.
That's what counts at the end of the day. And we're really hoping to steal your line, Tony. Continued success for Dion Charles, both with Stanley and wherever his career leads him in the future. But like you said, I think that we're all rooting that this situation can get resurrected, and that we see Dion putting the ball in the back of the net for Stanley many times before the end of this season.
Yeah, there's one person that can fix this whole situation, and that's Dion Charles. So the ball's in his court, and let's hope he makes the right decision.
Well, I will drink to that.
Okay.
All right, Tony. Well, if you don't have anything else, then I think it's time for our famous wrap up. On Stanley on.
On Stanley on. Cheers, Phil.
Cheers.